brings you more happiness, more joy, and more prosperity.
More
so,
love, more
with
joy.
that said, we have a wonderful guest coming on today who is
when you
just,
clear out the garbage
such
that's in your mind, then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
An inspiration to
have
me.
it more abundant.
Her name is Carol Wade. Carol, thanks for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here.
We have a very active imagination,
Carol,
which is
I'm
why
just
it's
going to talk
important
about
to
you
learn
like you're
how
not
to
in the
harness
room
it,
right now.
and then point it
So
in the direction
Carol
you want to go.
is an herbalist, and she's been doing this for over 20 years, right?
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational,
CSA,
motivational, and fun.
This is Positive Talk Radio.
Practical wisdom for
along
everyday
with
life.
her
It's a
herbology.
gift you give yourself.
And,
Now, here's
and I just
Susan.
wanted to bring that out for you.
And welcome to
listener,
Living Your
find out
Inspired
more
Life,
about, You're
because
listening to
perhaps
News
you
Talk
haven't
1590
explored herbs.
KVTA.
I think that they
and
work.
we're here
They
every
help my
week
system,
bringing to you
my
things
whole
of
family,
interest.
at least
I've
they're interesting to
on
me.
and off
Hopefully
through the
they're
years
interesting
had
to you.
different ones
But
of us
things
on
also
herbs,
that can inspire
whatever kind of
you
herbs.
to
So, Carol,
begin
let's
to see
talk
your
about,
life in a new way.
First,
and
let's
look
talk
at
about
things from a
why
different
you were led
perspective
to
than maybe
become an
you ever have
herbologist.
before, and also then
I
to
think
build
that very
tools
often
and
our
skill
lives
sets
are
that
such
will
that
lead
we
you
have
into
areas of interest
living
that
a life that
are a
you were
theme
born to live,
throughout our
living a
lives.
life
And for
that
me,
really
the
brings you
outdoors
more
and nature
happiness,
was one
more
of those
joy, and more
themes.
prosperity.
Healthcare was
with
another
that
one.
said,
And
we have a
with that
wonderful
was
guest
also
coming
caring for the
on
planet.
today.
I am a
who
child
is
of the
just,
60s, 70s.
such
I came
an
of age during
amazing,
that time. And
wise
so,
woman.
for me, I was
and,
very much
an
influenced
inspiration
by
to
that
me. Her name is Carol Wade.
idea
Carol, thanks
that
for joining
it's
us.
possible
happy
to
to be
change
here.
the world
So,
and to
Carol,
help the
I'm
world
just going to talk
be
about you like you're not in the
everything that
room
we
right
hope
now.
it will be in
So
terms of
Carol is
the
an
taking
herbalist,
care
and
of
she's
it,
been doing
in
this for
terms of
over
taking
20
care of
years,
each
right?
other, of
Yes.
building
Yeah,
community.
and she
So
has
I think that
started
in that
CSA, which is
atmosphere,
community supported
part of what happened
agriculture
for me was that I have a
business,
very
along
strong
with her
empathy
herbology,
and
and I just wanted to bring that out for you, the listener, to find out more about, because perhaps you haven't explored herbs. I have. I think that they work.
Express that
they help my system.
using complementary health
my whole family,
models
I've on and off
very
through
well.
the years had different ones
So,
of us on the herbs.
see, I'm very
whatever
much
kind of herbs.
about finding
So, Carol, let's talk
alternative-
about first. Let's
like
talk
you just said,
about
complementary
why
things to
you
whatever
were led
my
to become an
regular
herbologist.
doctor is
I think
supporting
that
me
very
in or
often
asking
our
me to
lives
do, and then
are
I often
such
find a
that we
complementary
have areas
something,
of interest that
generally with
are a
nutritional
theme throughout our
supplements
lives. And
to
for me,
support
the outdoors
whatever
and
it is the
nature was
regular
one of
doctor
those
is telling me to
themes.
do.
Healthcare
Okay, so here's
was
what I
another
wanted to
one,
say about
and
that. Oh gosh,
with that was also caring
my
for the planet.
grandparents.
I am a child
I remember
of the
my
60s,
grandfather, who
70s.
lived to be 100,
I came of age during
would
that
always
time,
go
and
to the
so,
doctor.
For me,
and
I was very
he would
much
come home
influenced
and say,
by
"Well, the
that
doctor said I have to do it this way."
idea
And I'd say,
that
"Grandpa, well,
it's
have you looked
possible
at,
to
maybe you
change
need to
the
change
world
what you're
and to
eating, or
help
maybe
the world
there's some
be
other
everything
supplements
that
you
we
can
hope
take.
it will be
No,
in
this is
terms
what the
of
doctor said,
the
and I have
taking
to do
care
what the
of
doctor
it,
said."
in
And I
terms of taking care
remember
of each other, of
in
building
my younger
community.
years,
So I think that in
boy,
that
I don't want to
atmosphere,
give up full
part of what happened
responsibility
for
of
me
my
was that
life to
I have a very
someone,
strong empathy
just because they
and,
have a degree.
and,
It was
natural
it seems like
desire
that particular
to be
generation
of help to other people,
surrendered
to be of service
everything
to other
to
people.
the
So for
scientific
me, as I
community, the
negotiated
medical community,
finding ways that to express
clearly
that,
had researched and
using
knew, more
complementary
because of their
health
research, but
models worked
boy,
very
really?
well.
Did they really know more than
so?
for my individual
See,
life?
I'm very much about
I think that was
finding
very astute of you
alternative,
to already figure that out,
like
even
you just
at a
said,
young
complementary
age. And I
things
think
to
that
whatever my
while
regular
science
doctor
and
is
some of the
supporting me in or
healthcare
asking me to
complex
do, and then
has
I
led
often
to
find a
very
complementary
important
something.
real
Generally with
accomplishments
nutritional
and tools
supplements
that are helpful
to
for
support
us to be
whatever it is
healthy
the
and to
regular
stay
doctor is telling
healthy.
me to do.
I think that
Okay, so here's
one
what
of
I
the
wanted to
things
say
that
about
gets
that. Oh
overlooked
gosh.
and in fact swept under
my
the rug is our
grandparents,
own ability to
I remember my
assess
grandfather, who lived to
our
be
body
100,
and how we feel, because
would always
after
go
all,
to
we're
the
ones who
doctor,
live here.
and he would
so
come
I
home
think
and say,
that
"Well, the doctor
in
said I
the
have to do it this
quest
way," and I
to
would say, "Grandpa,
always
well, have you
find the
looked at?
biggest,
Maybe you need to
best
change what you're
thing, you
eating,
know,
or maybe there's some
we
other supplements you can take, or no, this is
encouraged
what
to
the
go
doctor
towards
said, and I have to
specialists
do
who
what the doctor
have
said."
spent
And I
years and years
remember
studying something, but what
in
we
my
don't
younger
always
years,
remember is that
thinking
we've
that,
been
boy,
in our space,
I don't
this
want to
body,
give full responsibility of my life to someone
we bring something to the table
just because they have a degree. It seems like that particular generation surrendered everything to the scientific community, the medical community, who clearly had researched and knew, more because of their research. But
that we can bring to
boy,
what's
really,
going on in
did
our
they
own
really
body.
know more than
Right.
for
And
my
I love
individual life?
The fact that you said intuition.
I think that was
because I
very
think you're
astute of
right,
you to
at
already
least in
figure
my
that out, even at a
experience.
young
And
age.
this is
And
what
I
I've
think
taught my
that
son is to
while
listen to his body.
science
He's
and
the one that knows
some of
what's
the
going on.
healthcare
And, during the
complex
course of his
has
growing
led
up, he
to
would come
very
me and say,
important
Mom, I've got
real
this. I don't know what to do about it.
accomplishments
And we would
and tools
find,
that are helpful
besides
for
going to the
us to
regular
be healthy and
doctor,
to stay
we would
healthy.
find other modalities
I think that
to
one of the
see
things that
if
gets
it could,
overlooked and in fact
I wanna
swept under the
say,
rug is our own
cure it from
ability
the
to
inside out.
assess
Oftentimes
our body and how we feel,
I
because
notice that
after all, we're the
my
ones who
regular
live here.
doctors
And
wanna
so
put a patch
I
on
think
it,
that
or
in
here's
the
thing
quest
that is
to
gonna deal
always
with the
find the
symptoms.
biggest, best
And there is
thing,
an inner cause that we haven't
are
uncovered yet.
encouraged to that go that's true. towards I think that specialists who
Right.
have spent allopathic years and doctors, years the studying doctors that are something. in But what we our don't typical always medical remember system is that are very we've much been in geared our toward dealing with space, this symptoms. body, and in Symptoms our present, and community our entire their lives. And model so is to we do bring what they something to can the table to that's very take care of important that and very symptom, or valid, to and make that it should not stop, be or to overlooked. at And least sometimes in alleviate that it somewhat model, so that life is becomes more the very bearable thing for that the person. isn't brought they up, or don't that isn't always do encouraged. and are not that always sort of encouraged to look at in
responsibility
and schooling and intuition that we can bring to what's going on in our own body.
Right, and I love the fact that you said intuition, because I think you're right, at least in my experience. And this is what I've taught my son, is to listen to his body. He's the one that knows what's going on. And, during the course of his growing up, he would come to me and say, Mom, I've got this, I don't know what to do about it. And we would find, besides going to the regular doctor, we would find other modalities to see if it could, I want to say, cure it from the inside out. Oftentimes I notice that my regular doctors want to put a patch on it, or here's the thing that is going to deal with the symptoms. And there is an inner cause that we haven't uncovered yet.
I think that that's true. I think that allopathic doctors, the doctors that are in our typical medical system, are very much geared toward dealing with symptoms. Symptoms present, and their model is to do what they can to take care of that symptom, or to make it stop, or to at least alleviate it somewhat, so that life becomes more bearable for the person. What they don't always do, and are not always encouraged to look at in the schooling and training that regular MDs get, is to look at what the underlying causes are. I think somewhat that is coming in now, in the sense that people will look at a constellation of things that might accompany a condition. For instance, with cardiovascular disease, very often obesity is one of the issues. Poor diet, which goes hand in hand with the obesity. Stress is another one. Lack of exercise. So there's all these other factors that come to play, and that begins to move in that direction. But I think that it's too little and not delving deeply enough, and it's also not engaging in a very important relationship with the person who's in front of them, the MD, as a patient. Recognizing that you as an individual have a very strong vested interest in trying to find out what's going on, and in the course of that, in doing what you need to do to right whatever imbalance it might be happening. And that idea of imbalance and a system that might be out of kilter is something that you see encountered a lot in the complementary health fields, in the sense that we're looking not only at those constellation of things like exercise and stress management and such, but we're also looking at what's happening on a emotional, mental, physiological state. All of the different aspects of a person, and whether or not some of the basic things are being addressed, so that one of the things that can come from that is that those very, very basic things like drinking enough water and getting enough rest and having that rest be complete, so that when you wake up in the morning, you actually do feel rested as opposed to worn out.
Boy, I haven't felt that in years, Carol.
And that you're not alone. There's so many people that are in that place, and there are things that you can do. There's a whole study. People call it sleep hygiene. Like things that you look at and that you need to look at if you're dealing with insomnia, or if you wake up consistently in the middle of the night, or if you can't go to sleep to begin with. There's a whole area to look at, like, do you read exciting novels right at the end of bed? Do you have your computer in the bedroom with you? Do you watch television before you go to bed?
NCIS, right before I go to sleep.
Yes, right. So those are things that you can look at that make a big difference, like whether or not you exercise, if you're doing aerobic exercise at the hour before you're getting ready to go to sleep, because some people's lifestyles are such that they're squeezing things in the best ways that they can. But sometimes you have to, especially if sleep is an issue, you have to change your schedule a little bit and look at it again and say, well, wait a minute, this really doesn't work for me, because even though you're getting the exercise, which is very important, if you're doing it at the cost of sleep, that doesn't work. You have to do it in a way that both of them complement each other.
I love that we're having this discussion, because what we're also talking about is empowering the individual. And this is what we talk about on Living Your Inspired Life all the time, of that as an individual, we co-create our lives. We are the idea, and we are the executionary person that manifests their lives. And so in becoming empowered, it means being kind of self-responsible.
Exactly. And in that action, in becoming self-responsible, you also become responsible for the people whose lives you touch.
Because, let's talk about that.
Yeah, we're very much, we're communal by nature, I think, as human beings. And so as we begin to take responsibility for our lives in all the different areas that might manifest, then when we become more in balance, then our own being begins to shine in the way that it was meant to shine. We each have an individual light. We each have, I believe, a purpose for being here. And I think that as you begin to manifest that more clearly, because you're taking more control and more responsibility for your own life, then you also impact the people around you just by example. If only by example, but certainly by the way that you carry yourself, the ideas that you might present to people, because you have more clarity, because you just feel better. You're able to do many of the things that you hoped to, or you think, oh, well, I'll do that as soon as I get enough rest, or when I have more energy, or when I stop hurting so much, or all the many, many things that can come. So I think that part of taking responsibility for our health is also taking responsibility for our family, our community, our planet.
Now, isn't that interesting to think about? Because I know people that are living with, some of them have chronic illnesses, some of them, have issues that come and go, but it does. I'm thinking of one person in particular, but I'm not going to name them. But it does affect everyone they come in contact with. Their continual health issues and complaint thereof affects everybody, and so that people, it's not fun to be around those kinds of people.
Exactly. It's a distraction. It's a distraction not only for that individual, but also for the people around them, whether it is that you have such sadness that they're going through what they're going through, and helplessness about being able to do something.
Helplessness is a big one when you can't, when it's somebody you love that's having these dis-eases, if you will, and they are in some way seemingly okay being in that dis-ease because they've gotten used to it, or because their doctor says this is the chronic thing that you're going to have the rest of your life. Don't personally believe in that stuff, but the chronic thing you're going to have the rest of your life, and it does affect the people around you. And I have noticed that it even affects our animals.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
When I'm rested and I'm vigorous, my dogs are like, okay, where are we going? And when I am depleted and, having some physical issue, they're laying under the table going, okay, what's going to happen next?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's very real. We do impact not only other human beings in our lives, but we impact other beings, whether they be four-legged or winged or whatever. I think there is a connection that happens. We all have a certain energetic about us, and you can see it even in a smile. Like if you watch somebody who enters a room and they've got this really serious expression and very, obviously distracted or else full of something else that's not what's right in front of them.
Right, they're not present in the room.
Then everybody kind of tightens up,
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody walks in, they've got a big smile, their eyes are smiling along with their lips, then there's a sort of sigh of not relief, but comfort, or maybe even excitement sometimes. There's a connection that happens that is beyond words. You don't need the words. So there are all these things that we do that really do make a difference. So just as you can make a choice to look at a glass half full or half empty, because we always do have that choice,
right,
you can also make a choice to look at your life and the choices that you make in your life in terms of your physical life, the things that you're doing or not doing for yourself, and you can shift that. You do have power. You can make a profound difference in the way you feel, even if you've been told that you have a chronic condition. I think there's always something that can be done that will help you to walk that walk and to move through this life in a way that's more full of grace.
And supports you.
Yes.
In living a good life instead of an unhealthy life.
Exactly.
I think one of the things I strive to do all the time, Carol, and you know this, is I strive to remember that I have choice.
Yes.
That, like you're saying, the glass half full or half empty. And it's something that is a daily practice for me to remember, okay, I am at choice here. I get to choose. Is this what's going to go in my mouth or not? Or am I going to exercise or not? Or am I going to say no to a situation that's going to cause me more stress because I really don't want to do it?
Yes. Exactly. And I think that in the area of healthcare, or actually in our lives today, I think one of the issues that we face is that many people don't feel they have a choice. They don't feel as though they can make a difference in what's coming down right now in the world, on the planet, on an environmental level, on a political level, certainly an emotional level, in their own set of family or friends. Sometimes people are feeling as though, what does it matter? What point do I have in making these changes? Because it's not going to change anything on the outer world. And I think that that's one of the great disservices that our culture has begun to present to us, and that we allow ourselves to fall prey to, because what we do does matter. It can make a difference.
Hugely.
Oh, hugely.
Hugely. I have a little study group in Ojai, and we're reading the book, The Divine Matrix, written by Greg Braden, who's been on Living Your Inspired Life. And in it, which is everything I've ever studied, philosophically, spiritually, scientifically, with quantum physics, he talks about that there is this web, this matrix, you could even say it's Indra's net, which was an ancient Hindu deity, I think, a Vedic deity, who was believed to have cast this net around the universe. And every place the net connects, there's a gem or a jewel. And I love that imagery because I see that as us. Every human being is that gem or jewel that connects, that's part of the weaving of that net. And so what you're talking about is that's true for the animals, the plant life, the earth. We are all connected, and it is something that is vital for us to really wake up to, because the reason why I'm bringing that up is because we were talking about individual choice and the individual. I mean, I remember years ago going, woe is me, I can't make a difference. This was before the Berlin Wall fell down, right? And I'm like, oh, who am I, this poor little pea of a person? How can I make a difference? And I started kind of doing some meditative work, if you will, on peace. And not that I helped the Berlin Wall fall down, but the Berlin Wall fell down, and then, all the other political stuff that happened after that. And I was like, wow, is that connected? Mm-hmm. And what we're finding out from quantum physics and all sorts of things is, yes, it is. Where we put our attention, it causes something to happen. And so individually, even though we're living in our small little world, we are making a difference when we choose to be self-empowered and self-responsible and remember that we're connected. And like you're talking about, walk into a room smiling from your eyes.
Mm-hmm. And I think that even if in the beginning you can't quite see that far, you can't notice that the person next to you in the post office started to relax their shoulders and that their eyes smiled back, even if you can't see that, what you can see or feel is how it makes you feel. Yeah. Because it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile in your face. Like if you looked at your body, if you could take off that first layer of skin and look underneath, there's more muscles engaged in frowning than there is for a smile. I think that what we do to help ourselves, if only for ourselves, is worthwhile in that way. But you cannot do those things without also impacting other people in your life, without changing the way you walk your walk. So one leads to the other.
Right. So we're talking about the positive effects, even the person we're standing next to at the post office or in line at the grocery store or the checker, blah, blah. But the negative feelings that we have do the same thing.
That's right. That's right. And I'm not saying that we have to or should ignore the things in our lives that are difficult, because you can't. No. They're there. And to stuff them and hide them doesn't work either. But what I am saying is that when you look at them and you see them clearly and you see them in perspective and realize that while this one thing can seem very large, it's not the only thing that's in your life. Mm-hmm. And so you can begin to shift your perspective of what is happening. And so I think that I'm not suggesting that we go through life being Pollyanna.
Right.
What I am suggesting is that we go through life cherishing it, that we do go through life and we look and see what's in front of us, because even if part of what is there is difficult, there are so many wonderful things there also. And so it's keeping that balance and in
which
the
is
course,
challenging to do.
It is challenging, but that's where we swing back to health care, like taking care of ourselves not only on this physical level, but also our mental and emotional level. And they're all connected. Like we have different words for these different systems of our body, but we use those systems or words to divide it up in a way so that we can handle it, so that we can talk about one area. But really, when you work on yourself on an emotional level, you're also impacting yourself on a physical level too, and vice versa. So that if you walk with a huge weight on your shoulder all the time of the burdens of your life, then your physical body will manifest that too. There's a very real connection.
You're right. So, I totally agree. And as you're speaking, I'm reminded of this one doctor that I see. He's fairly holistic, and we do the AMA stuff with some supplements, and his receptionist, when she first started, was just this poor. I mean, I felt so sorry for her. She was not dowdy, but she was down in the dumps, I mean, she just didn't radiate any health, vitality, or happiness. And after about 6 months of her being there with him, I walked in one day, she remembered my name, she was smiling, she was laughing, she was joking. And I said to my doctor later, I said, oh my God, what happened? I mean, it's the same person with the same face, but it's completely different.
Wow.
And it was because she started to take care of herself from the inside out.
That's wonderful.
From her health.
That's wonderful.
Perspective. So I'm talking to Carol Wade, now, Carol, give everybody your website.
My website is www.earthislandherbs.com.
Herbs with an S. So I'm talking to Carol Wade, who is a herbologist, and she has a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture business. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the CSA. All right, Carol?
Perfect.
Okay, you're listening to Living Your Inspired Life on News Talk 1590 KVTA.
Hi, this is Susan Burrell from Living Your Inspired Life. I always find it easier and more fun to expand my life by being connected to open-hearted, like-minded people committed to being on the same path I am. If you feel the same way, I suggest you visit a Center for Spiritual Living. There are wonderful communities in Ventura, Ojai, Santa Barbara, Oxnard, Pleasant Valley, Camarillo, and Westlake Village. You'll find terrific people, great information, and more tools to help you live the life you were born to live. So go to csl.org to find a center near you. That's csl.org for a center near you.
Gotta change it, yeah, just you and me.
And welcome back to Living Your Inspired Life. I'm Susan Burrell, and I just want to let everybody know that we have an amazing website where you can get caught up and tuned in to all the prior shows. And it's livingyourinspiredlife.org. What you can also do when you go there is you can click on the inspiration page and find some tools or exercises to do in your spare time, which I'm sure most of you have, or you can create, and that will just help you to really refine your life and get refocused. If you're feeling like you're kind of out of focus or you don't know what your purpose is, livingyourinspiredlife.org will give you a basis for that. And the other thing I want to let everybody know is that there is a page you can click on to donate, and we will take a one-time donation, consistent monthly donation, whatever it is you feel called to do in order to keep us on the air. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on Living Your Inspired Life, I highly encourage you to donate so that we can maintain the quality of work that we do here. So thank you for that. Now, back to Carol Wade, who is the head of Earth Island Herbs. And Carol has a CSA, a Community Supported Agricultural Project. So let's talk about that, Carol. Tell everybody what that is, because people may not know.
Okay, so the Community Supported Agriculture model has been around for a while, at least since the 70s that I know of. And the idea behind that is that it provides a way for people in their community to support the farmers in their community in a way that is sustainable for that farmer. One of the challenges of being a farmer is that you don't always know that what you plant will be, that there will be a market for it, that there will be someone to buy it, that you will have enough of what people want, and that you will be able to get a fair wage or a fair price for those items. One of the things also that people don't always realize is that when you go to the grocery store and you're in the produce section or areas where other food items are, most of those things have traveled at least 1,400 miles to get to that grocery store. If it's like a more big box, regular, what I call regular grocery store. And because of that, there's a much larger carbon footprint for that food. In today's world, with people becoming more and more aware of and wanting to do something about what impact we have on our environment, then we are now able to look at and try to find sources of food that come from somewhere closer and that are grown in ways that are also sustainable, meaning organically, so that pesticides, herbicides are not being used, which then have impact not only on the food itself, but also on the ecosystem in which that food was grown. So with the CSA, Community Supported Agriculture model, what happens is that people can say to their local organic farmer, hey, I would like to to buy your produce, and in exchange for a certain amount of money, usually I would say a going rate is around $100 a month.
Oh, that's not very much for organic food?
That's right.
Wow.
And in return, what you get for that is a bushel basket of whatever happens to be growing at that time of the year. So you're getting food that's in season, a variety of foods, because sometimes you'll have in your basket something that you may not have even seen before, or you've seen it but you don't really know how to prepare it, and it gives you an opportunity to experiment and explore food. But certainly there are always those tried and true things like carrots, and depending on the season there might be tomatoes or there might be broccoli or whatever. And so the local person gets to have this good, wonderful organic produce. The farmer knows that there's going to be a market for his food, and you're also building community. You have an opportunity to meet not only the person who is actually growing the food that you're eating, but you also get to meet other people in your community that might be part of that CSA because they go to pick up their basket, and you have an opportunity to meet them then. With my herbal CSA, it's a take on that idea. It's a relatively new take in the sense that while these vegetable or produce CSAs have been around for a while, the idea of doing it with herbal products hasn't. And so I would say a little over 3 years ago, I was on my way back from an herb conference, and I was looking at one of my herbal periodicals. And I had been, prior to this, having a discussion with the farmer whose CSA I am part of about how we could bring herbs into his CSA, how to make that be something that would there be some model for that? And I saw an article about just one or two CSAs that were on the East Coast that were using herbs as their model. And I thought, it was like the big light bulb that goes off in your head. I thought, oh, this is it. And so I explored this idea with my friend as a possibility of something that we could do together. And then in the end have worked on the CSA as my own project. And the idea with mine is that rather than getting a basket each week of produce, what my shareholders get is a basket every month that has 6 items they can range from herbal extracts, which are alcohol extracts that are one method of preserving herbs that tend to be a little bit more concentrated. They're also more convenient to take, to herbal tea blends, to foot baths, lotions, spice blends, all sorts of things. I mean, the world is your limit, which is one of the things that I have really enjoyed about doing this. I would say that in these almost 3.5 years, I bet you I have made easily 200 different products that have gone into these baskets. And so also in the basket, my people get whatever herbal flowers are in season at that time. So it's an herbal edible bouquet that they get with their baskets too, which is food not only for your body but also for your soul, because I think a garden without flowers is a very sad place.
Yeah.
If it was only, well, it can't be without flowers because most plants need that for their reproduction, but people tend to overlook the importance of something like that. So this herbal CSA, one of the missions of the project is to help people to realize that there are a number of tools that are available to them that they can use to support their health or to help to rebalance their health, that they are very capable of using and even preparing on their own. Earlier, we were talking about that whole idea of empowerment with our own health care, and that is very much a part of why this CSA came into existence. It is to promote that sort of empowerment and to do it with knowledge, because it is a big world. Anytime you want to go into an area of healthcare, there's a lot to learn, and it can be overwhelming to look at something and say, well, how can I safely use this? Or can I safely use this? Do I have to be an herbalist to be able to make this preparation? And where do I get it? And what does it look like? And how should it taste? And how do I know it's a good product? all of those are very valid questions that we need to be able to answer in a way that satisfies us and that also allows us to walk forward in a healthy way. And that's part of what this CSA does. It promotes people to first of all try these products, see what they are, see what a wide variety there are of even the same, like lotions. Or for instance, in this basket for this month, usually what I do is I theme the baskets based on whatever strikes my fancy, like what the season might be, what might be going on, whether it be drought, or in this case, we're moving into warmer weather, and we're also looking for things that will help us to be able to live our daily life. And so the basket's theme this month is tools for daily living, like things to do that you might need. For instance, a lot of people are coming to me right now looking for this particular aromatherapy herbal insect repellent that I make.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's called shoe fly, and so that's going to be in this month's basket. There's a poison oak relief spray because we live in this incredibly beautiful environment, and thankfully a lot of people do go out and enjoy it. And in the course of that, you encounter these winged animals or winged beings, and you also encounter some of the plants that part of their function is to protect their environment, but they might have chemicals in their leaves that are caustic to us, like poison oak. And so the spray that I make is I'm so allergic to poison oak, but I love to be outdoors. So first of all, you learn to identify the plant so that you will keep your encounters at a distance. But if you do happen to brush by it, or your dog brushes by it, and then you end up petting your dog and then you get it, or your child does it, because I remember once having it all over my abdomen from my nursing 2-year-old who had walked
in the poison.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm in the basket also this month. There's a sunburn relief spray. So even though people try to be careful not to be overexposed to the sun, this spray will allow, in those times when you maybe went too long out at the wrong time of day, this allows you to utilize something that is a natural product. That one of the wonderful things about these herbal tools is that for the most part, they don't have really long, complicated side effects. You use them in a safe way, you educate yourself about using them, and you can feel pretty assured that they're going to do what you want them to do and not a whole lot of else.
Right.
And
and doesn't it makes, because they're herbal, the body, it will absorb it faster, yes?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there are herbal products that are called standardized extracts, and the idea behind that is that as we're learning more about herbs, as we're beginning to apply the Western model of science to the herbal things that are being used, that model is often a reductionist kind of model. Like the intention is to find the one thing in that plant that might be effective. And then what happens with standardized extracts is that they try to concentrate that thing, that chemical constituent. And so you move from a whole plant extract toward the end of the spectrum that is more of a pharmaceutical almost, in the same way that digitalis comes from foxglove, like it's a synthesized version of the digitalis that is in the plant foxglove. So, but when you get it, when you've moved it out that far on the spectrum toward pharmaceutical, then very often there are side effects that can come that aren't present in the whole plant, because the whole plant also has other constituents that help to balance whatever the unwanted side effect might be, or to mute it, or to bring in other aspects of your health, of your body's healing mechanisms that will help to deal with what that side effect might be. So
every month, the members of the CSA, your CSA or your herbal CSA, get a basket full of herbal products that are specific to that season or that time of year.
Not always the time of year, because sometimes there are things that, for instance, with a tincture, you can make that tincture maybe in the spring when that particular part of the plant that you're using is at its prime. But that tincture lasts for years and years and years. So the idea is that you can make things ahead of time to be used later too. But very often it will be plants that are happening at that moment. For instance, last year, one of the things that people don't always realize is that many of the culinary spices that we use on a regular basis are also quite medicinal. Like things like thyme and oregano and basil are all antimicrobial herbs. And in fact, one of the reasons that they came into use is because in days before refrigeration, then you could, when food was just starting to turn, you could still have that food by adding these spices to it so that your body could then deal with whatever those little microbes might be that aren't normally present in your being and that could wreak havoc in your being.
Oh my goodness. As a 21st century person, it never dawned on me that spices were there to make food last longer in times when food was scarce.
Exactly. And also help your body to deal with whatever organisms might be an issue. Or, for instance, one of the herbs that has really come into the limelight in the last few years is turmeric, which is curcuma longan. And it is a wonderful, it is the spice that's in curry that gives it that lovely orange, beautiful, beautiful color, which, by the way, if you use fresh turmeric, which was one of the things in our last basket, you do have to be mindful that that lovely orange color might get on your beautiful white shirt too. So wear an apron. But turmeric is an incredible, incredible anti-inflammatory. It's very helpful for dealing with some of the inflammation, which can then cause pain and other things, other issues in your body. There's also research with turmeric.
Like for arthritis or something like that?
Exactly.
All right.
It can be really helpful for that. Or if you've got a sports injury, like if you've sprained or strained yourself, or if you have something that has inflammation as a part of that process, like some types of nerve pain, inflammation is very much a part of that. So one of the things that people don't always realize is that with being not even necessarily obese but overweight, that there's an inflammatory process that's going on in your body. The foods that you eat can be what are called pro-inflammatory foods. So by choosing well what you're putting into your body, then you can limit the negative impacts that inflammation can have. So in looking at these plants that are also allies for helping you to make choices that are going to help your body stay in balance, then there are so many, and there's such a variety of them that can be helpful for reclaiming that balance or creating that balance. And so that is one of the things that is also a part of the intention with the CSA is to realize that, for instance, let's take rosemary. Rosemary is an incredible herb, not only as a seasoning in food, like in baked vegetables or in soups or whatever, but it's also an herb that is really good for circulation, including circulation to extremities, which includes your head, your brain. Wow. So it is one of the herbs that can be really helpful for short-term memory responses. So they've done studies with the essential oil of rosemary where students will smell the rosemary as they're studying for a test, and they perform better on the test.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Isn't that wonderful?
Where was that when I was a student?
I know. Well, recently we had a work party at my CSA with some of the volunteers, not only shareholders, but other people that are part of my community who came. There were probably about 12 of us this Saturday morning. And as a thank you, I gave everybody rosemary smelling salts because who doesn't need it? Like who doesn't need that? It's also an uplifting antidepressant. It gives you clarity. It can help with clarity of thinking. And in this day and age, who doesn't need that? Whether you're 16 or 65, it's something that is a positive tool to have that you can stick in your pocket or in your pocketbook and have with you to just smell, or if you just want to clear the air of the room that you're in. So with the this CSA model, then people see that so what I was going to say with the rosemary is that besides using it as a tool for cooking and for helping with memory and such, it's not the only herb that you can use. If you happen to be someone who doesn't like the smell of rosemary, or for whatever reason your body goes, not for me, there are very likely other herbs that will take that place. Like there's an Ayurvedic herb. Ayurveda is the herbal tradition of India, or one of the herbal traditions of India. And Godu kola is one of the herbs that is used in that tradition for helping with memory. And it also happens to be an excellent anti-inflammatory. It can be used topically for skin issues as a poultice type thing. So the intention is to help people to realize if you don't like one thing, there's very likely 10 others that will work as well. And so it's to encourage that. So one of the things that also is happening with the CSA, besides empowering people to use these and creating community and extending education about what's the safe way to use whatever it is, an extension of what's happened with this is that I now have an herb garden that is so lovely.
It's beautiful.
It really is.
Tell everybody where it's at.
So the garden is in Ojai. At the address for it is 1070 McAndrew Road in Ojai, which is here in Southern California. It is also, you can Google map it. That's thanks to my daughter, who is the computer whiz in my operation, because I'm such a cyber sore. But thanks to her, you can do it find the direction that way as well. But the garden itself is in the shape. Its intention also is to utilize as an educational garden, in the sense that it is in the shape of a chambered nautilus, which is a sea animal that is sort of a stylized spiral in a way. And each chamber of the nautilus lends itself to the idea of being an individual bed. And what I chose to do with those 11 beds is to make them have them represent a body system. So there's a cardiovascular, nervous system, immune system, and on, so that the plants that are growing in that bed are plants that are traditionally used for supporting that system or for ailments that might be particular to that system.
I love that idea, Carol, and it's beautiful.
It's
beautiful up there.
Thank you.
And so when you say educational, are you then staying at the garden and being the tour guide for people that show up, or how do they go to the garden and get educated?
Well, there are a number of ways. One of the things is that the garden is open to the public, though I will have to say that this next week the facility will be closed because there's an international trustee meeting, and so visitors can't come. But every other time, the garden is open to the public. And in fact, this weekend, the Krishnamurti Foundation is having a sort of May gathering, which they have annually to explore and talk about different ideas about exploring yourself. And the works also of this philosopher, educator, Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti. So I would say that would be one thing that your listeners could do, is come to the May gathering to just learn a little bit about that. The garden is very kindly hosted by them. It's the project of Earth Island, but it is on that property, and it is a stunning site. It is so very beautiful that even if you're not interested in knowing about plants or gardening in particular, it is a place to go and be still, to just be quiet and be present to the moment. So I would encourage people for that reason. But it is also, the beds and the garden is designed in such a way that from every path, both around those beds or going through the ones that are bigger, you can touch and smell every type of plant that's in there. So hence you begin to develop a relationship. Like some of these are plants that you may have heard of, or you may actually be using, or you may have seen mentioned in a book, and it's like going, oh, that's what that looks like. So there's a certain element of aha moment that can come to it. They're often very lovely. They're beautiful to see, especially in different seasons as they move, in their cycle too. But it is also a way of accessing information about culture of those plants so that you can learn what plants have adapted to living in this Mediterranean climate that we live in. And I very definitely stretch the envelope in the garden in terms of planting things that might not necessarily like full sun, high environment. But if I create a little microclimate, like a larger plant growing next to it that provides some shade for that plant, those are the kinds of ideas and tools that you can do to stretch the comfort zone of the plants that you're trying to grow. But there are so many that can live in this environment that it's really remarkable. The back part of that garden is set in the shape of a sun's rays, so that in those beds are a lot of the plants that I use perhaps more of, they're more production beds. Or they might be plants that you wouldn't necessarily want to touch and feel, like stinging nettles, which are, if any of you have ever walked through woods and brushed against that or on the edge of woods, you know that you've been there. And actually some people, can be a therapy for things like arthritis. But for most of us, it's not something that we would intentionally do. However, once you cook those fresh nettles, they are a powerhouse source of minerals and vitamins that are so good for your skin, your hair, your nails, and your kidneys. So it's just this wonderful item that can be thought of as a medicinal, but is also a food too. But having said all of that, I'm not putting it in the part of the garden where I'm encouraging people to touch.
Right. Mm-hmm. I have to share with everybody that I took a group of friends up to Carol's garden, and it was so fun to watch these women touching and feeling and talking about the plants. It was like they were in kindergarten again, going, ooh, look at this, and smelling everything, rubbing their fingers on the leaves and smelling everything. And, and everybody just so enjoyed it. And what was also interesting, Carol, is later, because you have a couple places to sit up there. And so after everybody was kind of had their fill of smelling and touching, we sat down. The entire group was calm. Because the views are beautiful up there. But also I think just the activity of interfacing with the plants themselves, everybody just kind of went, and they didn't want to leave.
Which is so nice. That's so nice.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we're talking about also with our demeanor, our own demeanor, and whether we smile or frown. Like you could create an environment also on this planet that invites people to be a part of it, to be invested in the care of the planet, in the care of the plants, which then extends to the planet itself and the community. So there are many levels that are being met, whether you're a shareholder or you go to visit the garden. I will say that every month, the first Saturday of the month, I'll be doing more official tours for people to walk around and to learn more about the garden if they want to. But whether you do that or arrange a tour with me to do individually with your small group, that's an opportunity for people to see some of the things that are available to them if they want.
So for people to do that, to arrange a tour or to become a shareholder of Earth Island Herbs, say it again? CSA. Thank you. You go to Earth Island's
webpage. You can do it that way, which is earthislandherbs.com. And there is an info section where you can click for more information for sending emails to me. Or you can, we also have it set up such that you can become a shareholder and make your payments online via PayPal. People pay me usually every month. I do have shareholders who pay for the year, and because they pay, it's an 11-month year that we do the baskets, and they get one of those months for free for having done that.
Oh, that's a great idea. And and you have a PayPal account, so they can do that through the website. Now, what about shipping for people that are listening and they're living further away than Ojai?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things with community-supported agriculture is very often it's about being in that community. But I had so many people that wanted to get these baskets that live in other places, or else people who lived here who have moved away, that I do now ship to other places, and I add $10 onto the cost to cover the shipping costs. So for a full share of my CSA, it is $55. For a half share, it's $35 for these baskets. So,
Carol Wade, just adore you, and I love having these conversations with you. And I'm so grateful that we could share what you do. EarthIslandHerbs.com. Everybody, go to it. I have been a shareholder. I tell you, the stuff that Carol makes supports my life. So thank you so much for being on Living Your Inspired Life, Carol. And I'm just going to say, and so it is, namaste.